Nearly 70 years later, and the life and legacy of Emmett Till is still being put on full display across the country.
He was a 14-year-old boy whose life was stripped in an era of deep racial injustice. THV 11's Tamer Knight takes us inside a new exhibit that's at the Mosaic Templars Cultural Center honoring his life. Tamer?
Well, from a tragedy that sparked a movement to an exhibit that continues to educate and inspire, Emmett Till's story lives on, reminding us that history is not behind us, but instead it's still being made.
His story is what many historians and people believe was the spark of the civil rights movement.
Emmett Till was a 14-year-old boy who was brutally murdered for whistling at a white woman.
When we think about Emmett Till, this young 14-year-old boy from Chicago who was going to visit his family in Mississippi in 1955, and the events that surrounded what happened to him was heartbreaking.
His death sparking outrage and cries for change across the country. But it was Till's mother, Mammy Till Mobley's courage to broadcast images of her son to the world with his open casket funeral that ignited a push for civil rights change.
What was powerful is that his mom, Emmett Till Mobley, said, "My son's life, it means something, and I refuse to allow anything to silence me." She wanted her voice to be heard, and she wanted her son's story to be told.
And nearly 7 decades later, her mission is complete, and Emmett's story is forever etched in history. The Mosaic Templars Cultural Center is hosting a new exhibit that highlights Emmett's life as a boy. The story begins on August 28, 1955, when Emmett was kidnapped from his uncle's home. 3 days later, his body was found in the Tallahatchie River.
As a historian and as a museum, we understand the importance of history. We understand that history doesn't necessarily have a timestamp. We understand that history continues, and it was amazing that his mom knew in 1955 that his story was important, and that years later we're still able to see, understand, document his story. And
the exhibit is family and kid friendly with interactive learning opportunities.
If you can pick up the phone and hear stories, we have kiosks where people can there's different touch points for people to learn about the life and story of Emmett Till, the strength and courage of his mom.
The MTCC says the death of Emmett Till is pivotal to history and connects with Arkansas civil rights stories.
Emmett Till's tragic life ended in 1955. After that, we began to see movement with the Montgomery bus boycott later in 1955, and then we see the onward march to the desegregation of Central High in 1957. Of course, we honor the legacy of the Little Rock Nine and the story of Central High here. So all these parts and pieces are key and pivotal to the stories that we share here in Arkansas.
Now the exhibit is on display now through early January 2026, and the Mosaic Templars Culture Center on historic 9th Street is open Tuesday through Saturday from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. with extended hours on select Sundays to ensure everyone has a chance to visit. For THV 11 News, I'm Tamer Knight.